Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins here in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm not wearing these glasses because I'm outdoors or trying to be cool. I just had eye surgery. But I didn't want that to stop the opportunity to have today's podcast with my partner, Christopher Zook. As you know, we're going to have an incredible guest today. He's one of the rare people who's reached the pinnacle of two completely different worlds.
Beginning of training camp, Bill Walsh stood up and says, I don't care what play we call, I don't care what defense we run, we're going to win because we have shared common experiences and an element of love for each other.
On the football field, Steve Young is one of the greatest quarterbacks literally that's ever played the game. He's a three-time Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP, and now a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Now that I see the greats, the titans of business, the titans of sports, they have a lot in common.
After retiring from football, he co-founded HGGC, one of the nation's leading middle-market private equity firms.
When you make a fundamental investment decision, it has to rest not only on the spreadsheet. Great investors are gut investors. Well, what is the gut?
This industry tends to attract people that are very transactional.
Transaction is so set in the DNA of our lives. And so I look at private equity and I see the partnerships as a way out.
How do you make sure that they feel like it's a partnership, you feel like it's a partnership, and it's truly 1 + 1 = more than 2?
It's an irony. And this is spiritually true. It's true in football. It's true and it doesn't matter.
A belief's a poor substitute for an experience.
There's no shortcuts. I got to start crawling.
The real question is, how do you give somebody an experience where they do something unselfish and they feel the rewards that come from it?
Fame, money, notoriety, like the hit rate's almost 100% of people that change their rootedness.
It's all love. It connects us at the deepest level. It levels all those things that separate.
Don't test it. Don't test my science. Test my, I don't care. We're telling you the truth. If you're not careful, you will define the most sacred parts of your life in transaction. And transaction, because it's self-interested, will rot.
Steve's helped build that firm since 2007, and he's been responsible for hundreds of investments and tens of billions of dollars in transaction value. Many of those funds have generated extraordinary returns and have been oversubscribed. So few people have experienced what it's like to lead a championship team in front of millions of fans and then transition into building one of the most respected firms in private equity. So today we're going to explore what connects these two worlds. So Steve, it's such a privilege to be with you, man. Your career is extraordinary, but most people know about your football career. You can't not think about football. But most people don't know about your business career here in capital markets. And here on the podcast, we're always focused on decisions shape destiny. Sometimes little decisions do it, sometimes big decisions. So our first question for you is really, over your multi-careers that you've had, is there one or two decisions that have really made the difference in where you are at pivotal moments today that you look back on and say, thank God I made that decision in this direction?
Tony, it's interesting. My dad once told me, not too many years ago, so I was older, and he's now 90, and it was maybe 5-6 years ago. He says, you know what, I think you like 3rd and 10. And that's a football metaphor, of course. And I'm like, no, I don't. No one likes 3rd and 10. 3rd and 10 sucks. 3rd and 10 is like hard. He goes, I know, but I think it finds you. And I think I say that because I think the decisions that have been the foundational responses, like, you get questioned and then your response has always been to climb, to grit, and some of it's like idiot savant stuff where he's like, I don't know, I'm just climbing. Well, what mountain you climbing? I don't know, but it's right in front of me and here we go, And so in some of that, I'm not saying it's like always the right answer or the perfect answer, but I think the thing that I look back on, it's the response. Am I going to go through it or am I going to go around it? And that's a really existential question for so many things in life. And I have gone around plenty to know the difference. And to go through it is the place that I think what you're describing is the why of where I ended up in these multiple careers and craziness. It's really because I decided that I was going to go through it and take the challenges that were in front of me. And so I don't know how else to say it. And I don't want to see people say, oh, everyone's success story is full of all this platitudes and great. Of course that was a great career. Look at all the. Any career, it doesn't matter good or great or wonderful, are built on like the same kind of stuff. It's work ethic and toughness and grit and that's kind of how I look at. I don't like 3rd and 10, Tony, but it seems to find me.
Well, Steve, I mean, you talked about, obviously, when you're in Houston at our themes event, you actually told the story a little bit about your dad. And I know that statement of go through it, not around it, came from your father. And the backstory for the audience is, when you were at school in college, you were like, I'm not sure I want to continue to do this. And if I remember correctly, you said effectively, your dad said, you can quit, no problem. You just can't come home if you do that. So, how has that really shaped you?
Yeah. So as an 18-year-old, my dad, his nickname was Grit. So that tells you that he was in Angela Duckworth's Grit book, strangely.
Oh,
wow. But he was, I took him at face value. What he was saying is, if you're going to choose this path, I don't want you here. Now, he wasn't going to reject me as a human or as a dad, but it was more metaphorical to like, I took him seriously. I was like, look, I guess I can't go home, so I'm not going to quit. But I think it was more his big thing throughout my life. He didn't care whether I chose sports or whether I chose music or whether doesn't matter. As long as it was going to be productive and useful in my life, he didn't try to guide me. He didn't say, oh, I played football, you play football, or I was in the orchestra, so you be in the orchestra. Like he did never, nothing like that. But once you chose it, then you were in. And his big thing is, because I remember many times when I was growing up, I wouldn't want to go to practice, or I didn't want to. As a sport, they were playing me, and so I didn't want to play it anymore in baseball or little league or whatever else it was. And his big thing is, you chose it, you got it, you're in. And I think that's resonated even in that. Chris, you talk about, when I was in college, when I was 8th string quarterback. None of the promises that were made in my mind weren't being kept. People didn't know my name. People didn't know that I was even there. I had other opportunities at North Carolina or Syracuse or at different schools. Like, wow, what it could have been? Why am I here? This sucks. I want to go. I want to quit. I want to maybe transfer. That's my dad's response was, you can quit, but you can't come home. And that was just, and that was consistent. That's consistent throughout his parenting. Is like, you chose it. You took all the information in. You said you were going to go to BYU. You do what you want, but I'm not going to be a part of it. And I think that's a super powerful thing in my life.
It's very powerful.
You think about it, most people are just don't realize that the simplest part of success in life is the part no one wants to do, which is getting yourself to do the things that are uncomfortable long enough until you truly master them, right? I always say people get rewarded in public for what they practice so intensely in private. And I don't know any great athlete, any great business person that hasn't made that push through continuously, not just once or twice. And I know you've done that throughout your career. I want to take a different tack on decisions, though. Early in your career, you signed up for the USFL, and it seemed like the obvious decision. It was a giant contract. In hindsight, though, it became maybe one of the biggest risks in your career. I'm wondering, how did that experience shape the way you think about opportunities today when you look at investment opportunities? Because most people, something's too good to be true, man, they got to do it. And those are the ones that often bite us. So missing an opportunity is equally challenging. How is that? Has it influenced you in that era? How did it influence your life, that decision?
It was a rogue renegade league that had some really meteoric rise and some real success in the spring. You'd have to live through it with the NFL the way it is today. You can't fathom it. But it was. And a lot of the, Herschel Walker and Reggie White and myself and many of the young players were choosing to go there because it was in the LA Express. That's where the team was. John Hadel was a famous San Diego Charger quarterback that was going to be the coach with Sid Gilman, who was the godfather of the forward pass. I didn't want to go to Cincinnati and be the first pick and sit behind Kenny Anderson. I didn't want to, and the truth is I didn't know many people in Cincinnati, and I knew tons of people in Los Angeles. So there was a comfort level too, but it was a high risk situation. But it was. I was going to be on the field. I was going to be, I could get better. I was going to be coached by people that really knew the game, and so I knew I was going to get better. And I was going to get better. You can get better by watching. I proved that watching Joe Montana. You do get better. It's slower. It's not as effective. But being on the field, being able to iterate real time, that's when you can really improve. And so I made the decision, and it was a risky decision. And I thought if it went haywire, I'd figure out a way to get back to the NFL, which is how it ended up happening. But I think I chose being on the field over not, essentially.
Well, one of the interesting things is, Steve,
did that influence your decision making, though? And when you looked at investments today, any of that shape that today in any way? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think there is no great investment decision that is without risk, and so look, every decision you make has risks involved in it. I think it has to resonate fundamentally to the things that you. Like, in other words, I knew it was better for me to be on the field. I knew it was better for me to go, if I was going to find out the full measure of myself, I was going to find it out in this kind of crazy rogue renegade situation. That's how I felt about it. Now, has it played out? Is like lots of puts and takes, but that's how I fundamentally made the decision. When you make a fundamental investment decision, it has to rest not only on the spreadsheet and this kind of financial engineering, obviously a big part of it, a lot of inputs. But they always says, well, great investors are gut investors. Well, what is the gut? The gut is that fundamental principle that you're grounded in, that you can kind of say to yourself, I'm willing to take this risk because, again, going back to, I'm going to be on the field. I'm going to find the full measure of myself. This investment is going to find its full measure. It's risky, but this is where we're going to find out if they're real players or not. We're going to find out if we're going to, and again, you might find out that you're not, or there's a lot of risks involved in it. But I think it does. In my investment history is really grounded in the same gut. And people say, well, how do you describe your gut? Well, I'm trying to tell you that it's grounded and rooted in something that is so fundamental to you that you know is important for the growth of you or that entity. That's where that gut instinct comes from.
Can you give us an example of an investment you made where that, and what that principle was that guided it?
Okay, so so there was a little insurance marketing business out of Norfolk, Nebraska, called Integrity, and the 3 owners, founders, good guys, and went and met with them. It was a great business, small, and they had great visions for what they wanted to become, and they were going to actually have to invite hundreds of partners to come join them in this and to build this business. And so in that invitation, I remember thinking to myself, who are they asking to join? It's other like-minded insurance kind of small entities. Are these guys the kind of people that when someone's making a risky decision, they know they're giving, like their business is their 3rd, 4th child, or maybe their first child, but it's family. Am I going to take the risk here and join this group? And I thought to myself, what's the rootedness of these guys? Who are they? How do they respond when do they respond in abundance, or do they respond in transaction? And I noticed that they responded in abundance all the time, no matter what the issue that came up, even in the negotiations over price. Their brain was thinking about how does this work out so that it works for everybody. And so I was like, that's that gut feeling, how people respond. They say to them, now this business is, I don't want to brag, but it's just a huge business, and they're thriving because of that rooted gut feeling about what is it that they're doing, and how can they see the full measure of themselves by who they are? How do they react? How do they respond under pressure, under the intimate, tough decisions they had to make? And now I tell them they're my why in private equity. My wife says, why are you doing this? It's like, well, because these people I'm backing, great humans who can now build huge businesses and not lose. What's the hit rate, Tony, in your life for fame, money, for notoriety? Like the hit rate's almost 100% of people that change their rootedness because of these things. And I want to back people that won't change, that will remain value oriented, moral, good guy, good women, making good decisions, no matter how big and how powerful they get. And that's what's happened here. So that rooted, gut reaction is really in that kind of idea that are they the people that can find the full measure of this business? And that's it worked. That doesn't always work. It doesn't always, it's not perfect. It's not a straight line, but that's one of them.
So
That's great.
it's fascinating. I'm going to kind of bridge two things that you just talked about into this next segment here. So obviously, I'll come back to evaluating talent, which is what you just described, and we'll go into a little bit more detail. But when you think about when you started HGGC, obviously you went from a professional football career into the world of private equity. You obviously just kind of put it out on the field and you said, okay, I'm going to see if I'm going to be any good at this, etc. But what was the feedback? What was the counsel that you got as you were starting into a completely new career that kind of set you on a path where you could learn what you needed to learn to be successful now that you're on the field?
Tony knows Roger Staubach, I'm sure. He was my hero when I was a kid. Played for the Dallas Cowboys for many years in the Hall of Fame. And we got to be friends. How many times do you get to be friends with your hero? Like, that's pretty cool. And I was retiring, and he was wildly successful with the Staubach company. I said, Roger, help me. I'm retiring, but I want to transition. I want to transition well. What is your advice? And he says, well, run. And I go, what do you mean run? He goes, run away. The game will never leave you. You need to leave it. And you need to, and then the other advice I got from a great mentor of mine, Bob Gay, said, look, you're going to fall off a cliff. You're one of the best in the world at something, like world-renowned surgeons, world-renowned philanthropist, or whatever it is. And all of a sudden it gets cut off. It's over. And the next day you wake up and you find out, you're not great at anything else. Very rarely are people great at two things, especially world fame. Like, you're great at one thing and now it's gone. So you wake up the next day, what are you even good at? Like, I'm not great at anything. I'm even good at anything? Probably not. And so there is a humility that has to enter. And I remember, I always describe it as you fall off a cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff is you're just a bag of bones the next morning. And like, in that bag of bones, what's the first thing you respond with? I'm going to respond with the humility of the truth. I was great at something. It's now over. And now I want to get great at something else. And how do I get that started? There's no shortcuts. I got to start crawling, and then I'm going to start walking, because I have the humility to say, I'm not even good at that yet. And then go on another journey. It's a hero's journey to be great at something. It's a hero's journey to start, go through the rigor, to face it. Now, there are some shortcuts because of your previous greatness, right? There's some small little places where you can shave off some time. But the truth of the matter is, it's a hero's journey. Everyone's hero's journey. That means that hero's journey doesn't mean that you're wildly successful. Hero's journey is that you journey. You actually went through the humility and the vulnerability and the ups and downs and the trials and the challenges and everything else, whether it's like career, marriage, friendships, doesn't matter. It's all a hero's journey. And I think that's why I got started with great advice. The game never did leave me, Tony and Chris. It never did. But I left it, and I left it purposefully because I wanted to be at least good at something else. And I'm grateful to my dad for that.
As you work through that, obviously you had great counsel from Roger Staubach and I'm sure many others. On the investment side specifically, did you model yourself after someone? Obviously, in football, you could choose some people to model after. Success leaves clues, as Tony always say. So, who in the investment world kind of either took you under their wing, or who did you say, I want to copy what they do, I want to model what they do, and learn from that to be able to accelerate that journey, that hero's journey?
It's a weird transition story. It starts out of the locker room of the 49ers when Silicon Valley was exploding around us in the late 90s. And we're all like, at least smart enough to know if something's going on. And I had been invited, a guy named Brian Maxwell had started a business called Power Bar. It was making meal replacements for marathoners. Power Bar was the first kind of protein bar. If you think about all the protein bars today, Power Bar was the first one in the late 90s. And I was famously eating them because I was single and, I was not meal replacement. That was my meal. And so we got to be friends, and he asked me to come on the board. And I'd never been on a board before. I'd gone to law school. I knew kind of governance. I knew basics, but I'd never been on a board. And I go to the board meeting, and there was Larry Sonsini, Wilson Sonsini, a famous kind of icon, legal Silicon Valley icon. And then Warren Hellman and Freeman, one of the icons of Silicon Valley. And so that exposure to those two, and I mentioned Bob Gay earlier, was at Bain Capital for many years and became a great friend of mine and a mentor because of his time. And we connected in philanthropy. Those three guys that were late 80s, early 90s titans that lived out all of the Silicon Valley success and investments and private equity. Those three names are the ones that really turned me from law to business. And it's like, look, Steve, I think despite the fact that you've been trained in the law, I think you're actually built for business. And I think what they were saying is that the EQ part of it, the people skills, the vulnerability, the recognition to see the other person and see the potential in them, like a great coach does, right? It sees somebody, goes, I see potential in you that you don't even see in yourself. So those kind of aspects, that kind of advice, those are the three names of the icons of people that I luckily ran into. I didn't seek out, but I think Roger Staubach told me to run. I ran into him along the way. That's
great.
And I ran into him, and there you go. And that's how it went down.
And you actually commented on two things that tie together, which is, for the generally speaking, there are exceptions, obviously, but business is more about 3rd and 10. It's more about figuring out how to go from a very short distance to a very long distance and to be able to do it in a short amount of time to be able to generate a return for investors. That's effectively what private equity is all about. But you also said something that I want to double click on, which is that, somebody saw something in you long before you saw it of yourself. Who would that be, that recognized that about Steve Young early, and then how have you used those same techniques to be able to identify talent as you think about who to invest in?
Great question. Because I look back at my people who coached me, even as an 8-year-old kid, Jack Schlegel, like there's that innate nature to see something, the potential in somebody that you don't see in yourself. It really showed itself in college. Lavelle Edwards, a famous coach at BYU. Remember I told you I was 8th string. I wanted to go home. I wanted to quit as a freshman. I remember that next year, I'd made a name I'd figured out a way to work through it. I gutted through it. I kind of made my way. And so the next spring, I was in spring ball, and I made my way to 3rd string. And I remember Lavelle Edwards pulled me aside. It's the first time I'd ever really talked to him. It's like, I think it's the first time he even noticed me, to be honest with you. And he says to me, listen, you're going to be great. I was like, what? You're going to be great. He was iconic head coach. He hung out with all the famous college coaches at the time. He'd been there. He was just and I said, Coach, I'm sorry. I appreciate it, but I want to say, hey, did you know I was 8th string 6 months ago? Did you not know you did? I don't know if you know this, but I'm 3rd string right now. But I didn't say that. I just said, I appreciate it. But as we developed a relationship, it was obvious to me, because then I started, my sophomore year, ended up being the starter, and I threw 3 interceptions in the first half against Georgia in Athens, Georgia. And it was a halftime. And he walked in and he says, he tried to calm me down. He's like, look, it's going to be fine. You're going to be great. Blah, blah, blah. And because he had invested in me in a way that I started to see the potential, I started to recognize, look, I'm not cocky. I don't think I will never run ahead of myself, but the shoes I fill right now, I can see I'm going to be pretty good at this. And so the 3 interceptions, I knew that they were mistakes and it was not a great start, but because he had led me to a place where I could step into the shoes of who I truly was at the time, again, a lot more development to go. He didn't need to he didn't need to calm me down. I remember turning back and saying, no, Coach, we're going to be fine. And he tells a story that he's sitting there going, why did I tell him it's going to be okay? Because his kid doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's not going to be fine. You're terrible. You're right. You're right. I ended up throwing 3 more interceptions through 6. But he stayed with me. But the point is, it's very obvious to somebody when somebody sees them, and I put them in quotations, sees them in the full potential of their human capacity. And it could be in anything in school. It could be in just capacity of personality. It could be capacity of intellectual. It could be anything. But the angels in life, or the coaches in your life, or the angels in your life who are able to have that heavenly given skill to see you in a way that sees the future, sees what's possible, and then can ingest that to you so that you actually take it in. I guess that's the point of the Lavelle Edwards story. I took it in. I didn't say, oh, he's crazy. That's no way. It's like I worked my way into it to say, I think he could be right. And it gave me that confidence. And so I take that in business today. That is a fundamental story for me that I want. It's a pay it forward story that I'm trying to do every day in my life. No matter where it is, where it comes up, I'm trying to be that person that stops, sees somebody, even for moments, and can give them some sense, even in the minute sense of, hey, you're doing great. Like it feels like, whatever it might be, could be small, could be huge. You could have a huge investment in that person. I think that's the greatest quality, the quality that I described, the angels in your life or the mentors in your life or the coaches in your life. Those are the ones that have the most impact in so many ways. And I'd love to be in that spot to pay it back.
I'm curious, when you were sitting behind Joe Montana, it seemed at the time, obviously the greatest quarterback at the time in anybody's mind. Had you already pulled that identity from those earlier angels, or was there someone at that stage of your career that kept you going? Was there an ownership of your own identity at that point? I know it was still humble. It still is today. It's one of the great gifts I think you bring to the table. It makes you have the kind of work ethic and depth of caring and love that you have. And people feel that about you, Steve. But I'm curious, at that time, was there another person like that in your life, or did you carry it?
So Tony, I was a oddity. I was a quarterback that ran around, and that was just not the prototype at the time. And yes. I was left-handed. No one wanted to coach a lefty. The coach at BYU that was offensive coordinator that luckily left after my freshman year, he told me, I won't coach a lefty. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is insane. He ended up leaving for San Diego State, and another coach came in, and I wasn't playing quarterback at the time, and he said, Ted Tollner said, why aren't you? I thought you were a quarterback. I am. Then why aren't you playing quarterback? Because they said I'm lefty. And he goes, well, what does that matter? I go, no, it doesn't matter. He goes, I don't think it matters either. And so he got me back. I mean, literally I had to come back and play quarterback again because lefty's okay. But lefties, you look in the NFL history, the number of lefties that have thrived in the NFL, it's a handful. In 50 and 60 years.
There's another lefty in the Hall of Fame, is there?
Kenny Stabler.
Oh, that's right.
But I mean, but there's 10% of humanity's left-handed, but less than 1% of the quarterbacks are left-handed. Something's odd there. You guys can do the research and figure it out and go after the league. There's some kind of bias there that's happening. But anyway, back to the Bill Walsh story. So I'm lefty. I'm running around. I'm an incomplete oddity. And so despite me feeling like I was going to be a pretty good college quarterback, you make a good point, Tony. That doesn't mean that you're going to be, can just run the table. So now I'm a pro watching one of the greatest players have ever played. And I'm saying, and I didn't want to be watching. And I wanted to say to myself, can I do this? And Bill Walsh, before I got to San Francisco, the first conversation I had with him, he called me because I'm in Tampa Bay and they were going to trade me. And they long story about how the owner allowed this to happen, but he allowed me to pick my team and at least go out and scout where I wanted to go, which is crazy in itself. And Bill Walsh called and he said, Steve, everybody thinks that being a lefty and running around is a negative. I think it's a huge positive. It's going to be the differentiator and you're going to be one of the greats in the game. And I thought, I can't believe that what everybody thinks is terrible or odd or weird, that Bill Walsh said that's going to be the secret for how you're going to be one of the greats in the game. And now at the time, Tony, I did not ingest that. Like I literally was not sure that I could play in the league. I was not. But
it was a seed. That was a seed there at least.
That was the seed. But then Bill Walsh had the offense to show it. He had the play calling. He had the talent around. He had all of it. And so it's like, if you want to see the full measure of yourself, you need lots of help. By the way, nobody does it alone. Nobody does it alone. And
that's right.
And so for me, it was that visibility because that rang in my ears still. That at a time when nobody saw things as like you were not, I was not prototype. I was not somebody to invest in. I was not somebody I was just odd. Today's game, Tony, I'm the man today. Like in today's NFL, this is my game. That's so weird. The future, I was too early for my time. But at that time, I needed somebody to see it as a positive. And I remember for the first time in my life, because I remember being lefty and go, I don't know if it's, no one wants a lefty in. He was the one that kind of leaned in. I really appreciated that big time.
I've seen you describe the best people as emotional athletes. I think you said that the people that can hold the vulnerability, the excellence.
And so in that way, my book that I wrote to my fellow LDS, kind of more of a religious book, was really around the same idea that if you're not careful, your relationship with heaven can become very transactional. Hey, I'll sacrifice God as long as I get credit. And it's very subtle. You don't say it out loud, but it's self-interest. Transaction is self-interest. And religion really can't be the full measure of itself if self-interest is rooted in it.
Yep.
It has to be selfless love. And people are like, what is this, hippie love, 60s? Like, stop. This is about a different paradigm that is against the transaction, the entropy of this world. But if you're not careful, you will define the most sacred parts of your life in transaction. And transaction, because it's self-interested, will rot. Sooner or later, it has to rot. It can't be perpetual. And if you believe that there's a durable spirit inside of you that will live on, then it needs to come from a place that's a perpetual place. It can't be led by these transactional laws. Well, what's it going to be led by? It's going to be led by selfless love. It has to be. And so as a description to me, the law of love is really around a way forward, a paradigm to shift our definitions of the very sacred things in our lives so that they're not transactional. We tend to use transactional language, transactional thought to define the most sacred things in our lives. And even in marriage or in those sacred relationships, they can't be transactional. They'll rot. And so that's why I have a lot of passion about it. And I've seen it in football. I've seen it in private equity. I've seen it in my marriage. I've seen it in my family life. I've seen it in my religion. Like, I know that the law of love is undefeated. It's undefeated in any place and anywhere. And I've kind of proven it to myself because I've tested it in all these kind of crazy places. And I've seen the people who have described it in different ways, but the same kind of philosophy and the same kind of underpinnings and rootedness. And I think that's the bounty in life, is to leave what is obvious to everybody, which is transaction, which is what's built like gravity is. You don't get to fight gravity. It's going to get you every time. I looked in the mirror today, just getting ready for this podcast. I'm like, whoa, things are not going well. Like,
gravity is going to win. That is for sure.
But against that, I'm leaning back against that to leave the self-interest and trying to find that's sublime, beautiful space of selfless love. And other humans, when they feel that, Tony, you know this better. This is intuitive to you and to you, Chris. It's like when somebody comes to you in that spirit of selfless, like truly leaving themselves behind, it hits different. It feels, it's impactful, it's masterful, it's the full measure of life. And so anyway, you asked a really loaded question for me, but it's connected to football. It's connected to Bill Walsh. It's connected to my spiritual life. It's connected to my business life. It really is. And that's why, you can see I have a lot of passion about it, because I've seen it, and it's sweet. It's good. It's worth it. And I remember, Tony, the other day you said something. I've been kind of thinking about you recently and all the years that you've been paying it forward and doing amazing things. And you said something about some people work to be happy, and but if you're happy, I can't remember how there was a little play on words.
I used the word to be happy.
It really was the law of love. It's really about, like, can I be present?
Yes.
And feel the day, and appreciate the day, and be and not be in control, and be submissive to a higher power, and in that space, I see people in a more abundant, beautiful way. I see so I remember. I'm sorry I didn't remember the exact quote, but I know you've been chewing on this for a long, long time. In fact, you probably had a great influence on me. I didn't even know it.
Well, you're very kind. No, I've known in my own life, I got to tell you that all over the earth, when people say you have all these different skills or abilities, Tony, you can negotiate, you can do this, you can build, you take an audience and do X with it, like you with the football, but it's all love. It's all love, because that's what moves people more than else. Because unfortunately, unconditional love, a love where you care about something more than yourself, when you're here to serve something more than yourself, when you disappear and just love is the only thing there, that's when people connect at a level that's beyond just the physical. There's a spiritual side to it, a spirit side to it, however you want to call it. It doesn't have to be religious in nature, but it connects us at the deepest level. It levels all those things that separate. And it's really obvious. I'm thinking, as you were speaking about, if I was a business owner looking to find somebody to partner with, it's like, this is the guy I'd want to partner with, because he's looking at life in its full dimension. And in the end, I've dealt with so many people. I recently had a conversation with a very, very successful entrepreneur, and his whole thing was like, F happiness. And I said, no, F suffering, F, the suffering comes when you're so busy doing things, right? You've forgotten to connect and appreciate what's here, the people, the environment, this breath we have, this moment. And I think sometimes in anything, investments, private equity, you get, as you said, down to the transaction level. And when that happens, it's going to happen at times. But if you stay there, there's no way to be fulfilled. And to succeed, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, right? And I really acknowledge you, because it's very clear you're living the richest, fullest life because you're giving all of yourself. When when you're done, there'll be nothing left but the love that you left.
Tony,
you touch. That's pretty
look,
gorgeous.
we need to be thank you for that. And I also appreciate, because I know you've been doing this for decades and leading the way, but in that way, again, I'm chewing on it with you. I'm chewing on it with others. I am not an expert. I am somebody who has seen the bounty and seeks it every day. But I also recognize the desire in my heart to get credit, the desire to be transactional. Like it's in the water. Like you can't, but you have. So again, I say nobody's perfect at this. But again, the intent and the aspiration of it. Everyone says, Steve, I'm interested in this. How do I get started? I say every morning, start leaving the harbor, have your boat point in the area of selfless love. I'm looking for a little small ways to help others heal. Like that's what I might not be perfect at it today. I might not even spend that many minutes at it, but that's my intent. That's intent matters over a period of time. And
that's beautiful.
I appreciate it.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It's one of those things that for so many, particularly younger people entering into this industry, because this industry tends to attract people that are very transactional, tends to attract people that are thinking very much about themselves. And so trying to build that into ourselves, obviously, because we're always struggling with it ourselves, but to build that into people in their 20s and their 30s when they're trying to build a family and they're trying to grow and accomplish and to develop, it's really an interesting thing to try to create. And, I end up telling, as many Tonyisms as I do head football coach isms as somebody who coached football for a long time. It is about building a locker room, building a team that is all focused on themselves, but not on themselves, but for the benefit of the overall team and making themselves the best they can in order to make the team the best it can be. So I love how you put it. Now, how do you put it to those younger people? Is there a way that you coach them, put them into situations, or you put them into environments where you give them the opportunity to exercise that muscle, if you will? How can you build that in the next generation?
Super cool. Because transactions actually developmental. Like it's important for children. Your 7-year-old, that's how you teach values is get credit, right? Like if I do good, I get a prize, Santa Claus, like be good and you'll get something good. But that developmental, I don't know that I honestly go back and say to myself, I'm not sure that's the way to do it, even as a child. But to describe what I just described in your own words around the transaction, what a transaction means, what's the nature of a transaction, the give and take, and why. And then obviously for young people, it's going to be over time because it's not intuitive to someone who's seeking. I was speaking to a group of 20-year-olds recently about this kind of subject. And I said, any questions? The kid raised his hand and goes, oh, Mr. Young, look, you're older, and you've accomplished a ton and you have a legacy. And so, you're on the other side of it, right? And so you can talk about all this kind of stuff because what else I know what he was. I put words in his mouth. Like, what else do you got? You know what I mean? Like you got nothing left, But what am I? I'm 20 years old. I don't know that I'm ever going to have a legacy. I don't know that I'm ever going to accomplish anything. What is this? How can this be meaningful to me? And it was an interesting question because the same question you just asked, Chris, is like, yeah, it sounds great, but I live in reality and reality doesn't allow for this. And I think what I try to describe is we all recognize the nature of life is transactional and it is rational. What I'm describing is more to that rationality. It's irrational, and I'll own it. I'll own that it's irrational. And as a young mind, you can start to say to yourself, "Okay, what Steve's talking about, I see that as irrational. I understand that why it feels odd." But then I said to the kid who asked me the question, I go, "Look, you're asking about legacy, and I really do believe, as an older guy, I have found through time." The true legacy is how much healing you brought to humanity. That's legacy. So if I'm right, I got a late start. I didn't figure this out until just recently. You're 20. I'm telling you, that's legacy. I think it's just flipped on its head. You're the one that now has a full lifetime to figure out how to build that legacy. And look, I understand that that's esoteric and sometimes, doesn't, but I think it's rooted in truth. And I think that's my answer, Chris. And I don't think that I think it's something you have to keep finding ways. I keep searching for ways to better describe what I'm talking about. And Tony, you've been found words in it for decades so that people can chew on it with me. Because if I can get young kids chewing on this with me, which I think their nature is, by the way, this is the first generation that said, I don't care if I get more as long as it's fair. Like, this is a group that's ready for this kind of conversation. We just got to find the language that really, I think it all will resonate. But back into the business world, we're built. The system builds transactional private equity professionals. They come out of school and they're like, I'm ready. I'm super powered. I've got everything. I'm here for you. And I go, sorry, bro. That's not what we're looking for.
Well, I mean, we need the kind of the financial engineering. We need the science of the deal. Those are all inputs. So I appreciate that part you're bringing, but a big part of what we bring is not that. And so they have to. There's many people, not many. There's a few people that have left our firm, Tony, because I just want to do deals. This whole thing this sounds weird and soft to me. I'm not into it. So I get that. Sorry. Well,
Chris,
it goes back to the old adage. Go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead. No, well, I was just going to say, part of it, I think, in my experience, for all of us to consider is it's hard a belief's a poor substitute for an experience. And we all have beliefs, and it's really based on experience. And so the real question is, how do you give somebody an experience where they do something unselfish and they feel the rewards that come from it? That's what I try to do. Give people enough experiences like that, then they get hooked. Then they get a dopamine hit that comes from the spiritual side of life instead of just the transactional side of life, where it's like no one else has to know, but you know. And when a person learns to feel that, now they're driven by a different voice, not the external world. There's an internal drive in them, and that's what's lasting. That's why I've never believed in motivation. People call me a motivator. I hate it. It's the worst term in the world because, motivation is like warm bath. You should probably have one, right, on a regular basis. But that doesn't change your life. It's finding what drives you. It's finding that inner drive. And I believe it's inherent in everyone, but you have to give them some experiences. Up until now, the only experiences they've been rewarded for have been those transactional ones. So that's what I try to look at it. But Christopher, what were you going to say?
No, what I was going to say, it goes back to the adage of, the best way to be successful is to help everyone succeed in what they're accomplishing. And obviously I'm paraphrasing that. But to be able to enable others to achieve what they want to achieve inevitably is going to lead to success for the entire team. And so that's a really big part of what I love about what you're talking about, and how I really hope that this generation of 20s to 30s to 40s recognize that we can all get what we want if we also allow other people to get what they want, and we help facilitate that. And what I'll do is I want to transition a little bit to the realities of the investment side.
Chris,
Please go ahead.
I just want to say it's the ultimate irony. That's the truth of it. It's an irony. And this is spiritually true. It's true in football. It's true, and it doesn't matter. In losing yourself, in seeing someone else. And if you said, "Look, I'm solely interested in your healing today," that's the irony is that's how you actually receive the bounty. It's in the losing and the finding. That's the part that I want young people to understand is that it is irrational. Because it's ironic in its totality. It's in losing myself in the seeking of someone else's healing is how I receive everything that I need. All the stuff because everyone says, "Well, I need stuff too," and that's the best way to receive it. And that's where
I'll quote Tony and say, the true secret of living is giving, and that ultimately is what Tony's taught for so many decades.
That's the ironic truth. Like when everyone who's listening to this. Go test it. Go test it by science. Test it by, I don't care. We're telling you the truth. Now just go chew on it and start thinking about it. Because I tell my kids, I have 25 to 17-year-old, and my 17-year-old's like, "Hey, Dad, I think I'm going to read your book." I'm like, "Well, yeah,